Well, namaste and welcome to Satsang today, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. And whether this is your first time or thousandth time here, you are very welcome. And I want to just start by expressing my love and appreciation for all of you. And I hope you know that. I hope you feel that, because we get many positive messages and sort of messages of thanks and wonderful YouTube comments. And I can't reply to all of those myself, but I do try to read them all and really deeply appreciate that. And I hope you feel supported and encouraged in this process as much as you possibly can in this moment. Awakening is the most rewarding thing that any human being can, I'll say the word pursue, but that isn't right, but you know what I mean. But it's also the most challenging, and it can be the most lonely sometimes. So I'm very enthusiastic, let's say, about encouraging everyone to make friends with each other in the Sangha, to connect with people. We have the YouTube channel to do that. We have the Facebook group. There's a Facebook page. There's Instagram there. All of those ways to connect with other people and more. There's Sanghas that we run for free also. If you want to attend those, you can. They're free for everyone that's following these teachings. You don't have to speak on those. You can just join and watch. It's entirely up to you. So just ways that you are supported and encouraged. And because of that, because of the community feeling, that's really what's going to make a huge difference in our awakening. How loved we feel will also influence how much we can love ourselves right at this current moment. And that really is the pivotal thing for me. How much can we love ourselves in this moment? And that doesn't mean trying to love the ideal version of us. It's loving ourselves as we are right now. And yes, there might be things we want to change, but there might also be a deeper ability to accept how we are right now. And that is awakening. That is authenticity, as in my opinion. So I just wanted to share that before I get into today's sort of topics. I'm going to use today to our satsang time to read some of the questions that have come in, because there's quite a few here, and it might be good to go through. It always happens to be that whatever the questions come in that we read, whether they're live on the session here or have been sent in to be read anonymously, they tend to always be what's current for everyone else too. And therefore, I know it will be useful to read these for everyone. Just in case you didn't know, if you do have something you'd like help with and you don't want to ask live on a session like this, you can send it in through the Satsang page on helenhamilton.org, and it'll be read out anonymously so that you can get the help that you need. So I'll try to get through 3 or 4 of these questions, and we'll open it up here, see if there's any questions live today here too. So this first one says, "Dear Helen, thank you so much for your satsangs. Every one of them is a recognition and a gift. My pure nature is curious, open, and interested. A question arose after I listened to your satsang, Drop the Seeker, 4 weeks ago, which was the first video I saw after I opened YouTube today. Again, such a wonderful gift. In this satsang, you say that awareness looks with loving attention, but is not invested in where it looks at. What is it that invests so much in the life of this human being? Is it this same interest, this openness, this curiosity? So let me start that sentence again. Is it this same interest, this openness, this curiosity in who I really am, which is with me my whole life as this human being? Or is it the thought process of the seeker or mistaken identity? What is it that invests life in this human body, in its senses, in mind and emotions when awareness is only looking with loving attention without investing in anything. Much love. So, as you've said here, there's two aspects to this kind of presence that's here. There's one aspect to this that we are that's just lovingly watching and is the epitome of love. It isn't judging, it isn't trying to change anything, it's just watching, as you said, lovingly, curiously, and it just kind of, it isn't interested in trying to manipulate anything that's going on. In fact, it can't. And let's call that awareness, as you've said, the real self. And then you've pointed to this other aspect of this looking that's constantly commentating and judging and evaluating everything it sees, and is deeply invested in changing everything, and perhaps most invested in changing ourselves as a rejection of who we are already. So is it this mistaken identity, or is it the awareness that's doing this? And technically we could say they are the same thing. So this loving, beautiful, non-judging, non-judgmental, just pure witnessing of awareness, when it takes the shape of a human being, it begins to identify with and as that body. It thinks, suddenly it thinks because it has a human brain to think, and then it thinks, this is what I am, this is all I am. And so it evaluates its self-worth based on what it thinks it is. And it sees a human body and mind in a process of evolution and a process of allowing the truth to unfold through and as the human body and mind, and our life, even our relationships, everything. And that is a constantly unfolding thing, a flower that's always blooming. Each day, our bodies and minds and our lives and our relationships are moving more towards love and acceptance and non-judgmentalism and all of that. More towards how the pure awareness already is, a deeper, truer expression of what we already are. And our invested identity as a separate being that we think we are is looking at a snapshot of how things are in this moment. We might be looking at dysfunctional relationship, or a lack of peace that we might be feeling, or some strong negative emotion, or some karmic pattern that keeps on playing around and around, or all of those at the same time, and saying, this is not how I should be, this is not how I want to be. So it is the same one being, but when it takes the shape of a human being and starts to think about itself and everything else, it imagines that it's separate to everything and everyone else, which is never true, but it does seem extraordinarily true, and therefore is experienced by this pure awareness, appearing as a human being as true. When I believe I'm separate to everyone and everything else, because I am the infinite self, anything I believe about myself, I'm going to experience as completely real, so real that I won't even question it. So this, we could call it this pure awareness, and then this identified awareness. And there's no real perfect way to kind of describe that, because awareness is never really identified. It's only on the thought level. It's only on the level of mind that anything has happened at all and anything needs to be undone. So there's this contracted form of awareness that believes it's an object, as someone. And because it believes it's an object and it believes it's temporary, it kind of gets all funky ideas about everything then. It begins to believe that its own self-worth as a human being is defined by what it does and what it accumulates and who it can become in the lifespan allotted of that body and mind. But coming to see, as we're doing in Satsang, that we're not really separate to anything. Only the forms and the shapes appear to be separate. And seeing even clearer, those forms and shapes are this pure awareness appearing to be something and someone. then nothing is really separate. We're not really isolated. There aren't really any other beings at all here. There's only the one being appearing as all of these sentient and insentient forms. As that becomes clearer, then this identified, contracted version of awareness begins to unfold itself, unravel itself from all the habitual ways it has of thinking about itself. All the unworthiness begins to fall away, all the sense of having to correct something that went wrong will begin to disappear. And this pure awareness is just as lovingly invested as this contracted sort of identified awareness. But it's not trying to change. It's deeply curious, deeply passionate about life, about existence, about everything. It's deeply in love with everything. And not in a kind of romantic way of love, where everything's always wonderful, but a deep and abiding sense of allowing everything to be authentically as it is, a life without shoulds or shouldn'ts for ourselves and others. Yes, we can have a preference how we would want things to be moving forward, but no ability to deny how it is in this moment now. So it is technically the same awareness, the same pure awareness, but its ability to shine as that pure awareness has been diminished, covered over by all the thoughts it's believing about itself. It really comes to believe it is only a human body and a mind. And it really comes to believe that it started when the body started and it'll end when the body ends. And just those two kind of ideas in themselves are enough to cover up most of the light that's trying to shine through. So as we begin to see through those ideas, the light of that self, that infinite pure awareness, begins to become evident to everyone. So hope that helps. It's not so much a rejection of this identified awareness, but an understanding of it, why and how it thinks that way, and the fact that its problems can't be solved. The problems of the ego can't really be solved on a level of ego. They can only be seen to be untrue. And then any problem that I think I have as a separate being will begin to dissolve as soon as I see I'm not a separate being. Everything else begins to melt away. So hope that gives you some focus there. Next one. Hi, Helen. Thank you for your wonderful guidance, which I only discovered a week ago. I attended my first live satsang with you this morning. Very helpful. Thank you. My journey has been very gradual, interspersed with many small felt shifts in insights, understanding, behavior, healing, relationships, and heart openings. The latter, during which I felt blissfully in love with everyone and everything, once lasted for 2 weeks. I've yet to experience unity, consciousness, or lasting joy. I'm overly, in brackets, patient, but at 73, I don't want to waste precious time being stuck. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Namaste. I'm really glad you could join us live, and I'm really glad you got some help out of the satsang. And I think it's really good that you are less and less willing to be overly patient. I never had any patience at all. Still don't really, if I'm really honest. I never could wait for anything in my entire life. And as my parents will attest to on Christmas Eve, I'm sure. So here, impatience is quite often a good thing, isn't it, in this? Why put it in the future? And why say that something has to happen, change or something before I can fully enjoy living as the self? And you've, especially after kind of a 2-week preview, the preview before the movie starts, so to speak. Here's a snapshot of heaven, and then 2 weeks later it's kind of gone. Of course, then there's going to be some huge impatience and some inability to live back in the normal way of a human being. I say normal, just because it's normal doesn't mean it's true. But the usual state is perhaps a better word of a human being, going back to that. And most especially for us here in Satsang, seeking, going back to seeking after having found is absolutely unacceptable. And for me, I couldn't go back, and that led to this urgency of impatience. And I began to finally understand that that was a good thing, to not want to wait, to not be able to wait anymore. So you've had a taste of something, and of course now you want that again, and then you want it all the time, as it was for me. The moment I tasted some release and relief from suffering, I wanted that all the time. And then these heart openings where there is obviously never been anything wrong with me or anyone else, and everything is working out perfectly. And of course, then we want to bring that into our permanent, to make it into a permanent, effortless, stable way of being. And just to notice what happened, then look at the mechanics of why this glimpse burst through for 2 weeks or 2 hours or 2 seconds or 2 days, some people 2 years. For me, it was never more than, it was very gradual for me too. It was never more than a couple of minutes. I think about an hour was the longest I ever had one of these heart openings for. And the effects of that afterwards, there was a lot of crying afterwards, and general joy and things like that, but they always diminished. And I began to really look at why that was happening. Why did I go back to the normal, usual state of my consciousness? I began to realize that this that presents itself, this real nature, this loving, compassionate, embracing, powerful, gentle presence that is our real self, is always here. And instead of, my question then became, how do I get that back? It moved to the question, how do I allow that more often during my day? I realized this very question, how do I get this back? Or what have I done wrong to lose it? Has actually seemed true to my mind, but it was very harmful in terms of if being authentically okay with myself as I am right now is going to open up this glimpse again, then saying that I've done something wrong, or I've lost it, or I don't deserve it yet, all of that is going to be very counterproductive, isn't it? So this question for me, how can I allow this that I've experienced to become a constant thing? And that really began to show me, and that might feel, sort of somewhere that you can guide your questioning. Why is this seeming to leave? What covers it over? If it's here all the time, just like when the sun's shining and the cloud moves in front of it, you can't see directly the sun in that moment, but you know it's there. So what's the cloud? What's the current cloud that's in the way of this? And how do I move behind the clouds? How do I fly above the clouds so that I'm always illuminated, so to speak? And it became clear for me that it was this one core idea that I was looking at, in the metaphor here, at the sun from the earth, looking at it so something could come in between us and block my felt sense of peace and joy and all the things that you're asking for here, being in love with everyone and everything, and wanting to speed this up. So are you looking at the sun, or are you the sun? Are you even having to do anything to allow this real self to come to the surface? Is there anything else you need to do? Can you do anything else as a separate being? If you don't really exist as a separate being, if you are already this infinite self, then our questions can become, how am I not allowing that in this moment? What am I doing unknowingly, of course? What am I believing? that's obscuring that light, that loving compassion right now. And usually, 99 times out of 100 for me, it was some form of self-judgment, some form of criticism of myself for criticizing others. On and on it goes. Fundamentally for me was this realization that I am already looking from the self. I am the self already, the infinite pure awareness. And a thought that's being believed in my head at this particular moment is producing this negative emotion, which is felt in my body, which seems to obscure this light. And every time that emotion subsides, this peace comes back. So looking at what we believe to be true still, perhaps most especially that there's something you're doing wrong, the idea that might be there that you're doing something wrong when you lost this after 2 weeks, and that you have to get it back. These ideas tormented me for a very long time, the sense that I need to change something, that this glimpse is gone and something happened, something's gone wrong because it's gone. What if it has to go to show you what you're still believing, to make it a permanent state? We have to release what we're still believing. And we wouldn't be able to release what we're still believing unless we see what we believe in, experience it right now. So all these ideas for me that I could lose it, I literally experienced, I could lose this beautiful heart open space. When I believed that, I had to experience losing it and then trying to get it back and having it for a short time and then it going again and on and on and on. So if you are it, is any of that true? And you might have said, of course it is, because I've had all these experiences of it coming and going, and my awakening has been very slow and frustrating. And I'm paraphrasing, from what you've said. But maybe all of that is occurring because we believe there's something we need to do before we can just be this. Because we're referencing the state of our body, our mind, our emotions, our life, our relationships, and saying, see, this wouldn't be happening if I was already living as the self. And I had to flip that on its head. I am already the self, no matter what, whether my relationships are still needing a little work, whether my emotions can still be very negative sometimes, whether my karmic patterns are still playing, whether I have enough energy, whether I have enough money or not, all of that. I will not allow, I am the self, but. And I'm not denying what's going on in my life. I'm just not using that as an excuse to say that I need to go further in my awakening. So hopefully when you kind of digest that, you might see that you're putting conditions on when you can be the self. If I asked everyone here now, why can't you feel what I'm feeling right now? Pretty much everyone would say, well, I can't until. And they would refer to some invisible list in their mind of conditions out there and in here that needs to be changed first before they can be the Buddha. And what if it's the other way around? What if I have to just insist right now, right where my life is, if I have to make a stand, if I have to plant my flag now here as the self, and then everything else begins to right itself. So that would probably be the only thing, this invisible list of to-do things that has to be, according to mind, has to be resolved before you can live as this. And you'll never get to the end of it that way. So hope that is helpful. I'll do one more and we'll see. If anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand here on Zoom, or if you want to share something. Okay, this says, Dear Helen, first of all, thank you. I so appreciate you sharing your satsangs online and addressing our human humanly questions that are often avoided in teachings. I do have a great confusion concerning the topic of desires and decided to write to you. I've been questioning a painful belief, or rather a fear, that I will not get what I want. It brought up many painful outlooks on life, a man-woman relationship, suppressed yearning for experience of love, safety, support, and a deep belief that goes with it that life is suffering. It feels painful that even if we get what we want in the outer world, all of it is fleeting in the end, and therefore includes suffering in its base. It goes hand in hand with spiritual truths that arose as well in this questioning: suffering of the ego, suffering of wanting something outside of you. I can even hear Adyashanti's voice telling me it's okay to have desires, but when you get tired of suffering, let me know. I have an experience in being in the flow of life where desires ceased, as each moment is simply not lacking. I also understand what I'm seeking is an inside experience and may come in other forms. I remember Byron Katie once saying that the most painful belief of patients dying in hospice centres from AIDS was, I want to go home. I really got that and got how thoughts of resisting what is makes us suffer. But I listened to one of your satsangs today, and a woman was questioning you on the extinction of polar bears and her suffering desire for it not to be so. You told her to question that, since if she is everything, can she know she can't have that? Isn't that suffering in its base? I am so confused. I would appreciate any pointers for me on how to proceed with this questioning, and also your own sharing of this inquiry. Right now, I feel that desiring is the sad truth of ego's life, and my only hope is to see beyond it. At the same time, I want to be healthy. I want a life partner and financial adequacy, all of which I don't have and greatly wish for. Much love. So desire is a topic for me that really confused everything. It was very confusing, and that's why sometimes, or quite often, I talk about it, because it really was very deeply misunderstood by me. And if we look at desire in its pure nature, when we have a desire in its purest form, we are without any beliefs in the way of that desire. When we just have a desire for something, whatever it is at all, that desire is felt with pure excitement, a sense of anticipation. Ask any kid on Christmas Eve, and they won't be able to go to sleep because they're so excited. They have this intense desire, and they don't even know what that is for. They might not know what they're getting the next day. But this is desire in its essence: excitement, anticipation. Something good is coming. That's the essence of desire. When desire doesn't feel that way, which of course we're all so much more used to, most human beings have desire hooked up with pain and suffering, as you pointed to here, that they might even be seen as the same thing, that I want something, whether it's financial adequacy or a relationship or awakening. If it's hooked up to some suffering, some beliefs of why it can't happen, then it's going to be inherently painful. And the amount of beliefs we're believing about that desire as to why we can't have it is indicated by the amount of pain. So I might have a desire and feel sadness or grief or even apathy. There's really no point in me wanting this. And I might begin to suppress my desires because it's easier than feeling this pain. So rather than desire itself being the issue, I found that it was the beliefs that were getting in the way of the desire itself. I would never suffer with the desire itself, but only the reasons I was telling myself that I couldn't have it. And those reasons make a lot of sense as a separate being, isolated and alone, powerless in the world. As the infinite self, are those reasons still valid? As the omnipotent, omniscient, pure awareness, are those reasons still valid? And in the example you quoted, desire, when you get tired of suffering, let me know. Well, for me, that was really pivotal. Why am I suffering with desire? Why do still some desires feel very exciting and some feel very depressing? What's the difference there? The word desire, when you look at the root of it, it means to give birth to. Something is going to come of that desire, from that desire. Or perhaps more truly said, that desire that I'm feeling is indicative that something is already in the process of becoming. It's happening out here and it's happening in here as this feeling of want. And the pure feeling of want isn't painful on its own. Only if I feel I'm not worthy, not ready, not able to have it, or if I'm referencing all the previous times I didn't get what I want, when I thought I was a separate being, then I'll feel that I can't have this, and I'll feel the desire will feel painful. Looking at desire purely in itself, it's not an issue in and of itself. And especially if we get really, really down to the basics, do you really want financial adequacy, a life partner, and to be healthy? Or, and of course you want those too, but do you really want how you'll feel when you have those? How will you feel when you have those that you don't think you can feel now? If I had to really look at my desires, what do I really want? Do I really want awakening? Or do I actually just want how it will feel when I have that? And then the question became, why can't I have that now? So drilling down my desires, distilling them down to how I want to feel. Every desire came back to a feeling. And then life can give us these outer circumstances, the right partner, the health of the body that we want, and all of that, the awakening, as outer agreement with the inner feeling that's already here. So it's not like, okay, I have to renounce everything in the world so that I can have this feeling in here. It's that all that stuff can only come when I've reconciled what this desire really is. So what do you want? And keep asking, why do I want it? Why do I want this? What do I feel it would give me that I don't feel I have right now? Every time I asked myself that, it came back to this question, this feeling rather. I want to feel, because I will feel this way, because I will feel that way, and I don't feel that way right now, was the revelation from that. And then looking at that deeper. So this desire to want to go home, is that desire in itself painful? You've mentioned this, just want to finish on this. People dying in a hospice from AIDS, this real strong desire to want to go home, is that what was painful? Or was it the belief that they're not already there? Again, we have to separate the desire from the belief that doesn't seem to be allowing it. That's what causes the pain with desire. Desire is actually a very pure, high energy. Right now, we desire to be in the satsang. We desire to take another breath. All of manifestation moves through desire. And in manifestation, you cannot get away from it. Yes, in the unmanifest pure aspect of awareness, there is no desire or anyone to desire anything. But we also have a human body and a life, and that's going to be full of desire. So just unpicking the desire from the beliefs that are in the way of it, and then getting really clear on what you want. Really clear. Why do I want it? Okay, why do I want that? Why do I want enough money? Well, because I'll feel more relaxed then. And why do I want to feel more relaxed? Because I'll feel better. So I did this with every one of my desires until I got back to the feeling, and I focused on why can't I feel that feeling right now? And then slowly at first, but then an avalanche of things began to happen. In fact, everything I'd ever wanted and not allowed myself began to show up. but only as an agreement with how I was already feeling inside. If having this thing or this person is going to make me feel a certain way, and I'm feeling in pain right now inside, how can this ever come and agree? I can only have outer circumstances that also agree with my pain. So I hope that is, it's a huge topic, desire, and we could definitely talk about it longer, but Christina's been waiting a while. Sorry, Christina, whenever you're ready. Can you hear us, Christina?
Oh,
there we go.
Hi, Helen. Sorry.
No problem. Nice to talk to you.
Yes, thanks you. Thanks, and nice to talk to you. And thank you so much for your wonderful satsangs. Actually, it's really helpful for me. What you just talked about, it's actually quite related to my question. I have a desire, and I was this morning I was listening to a satsang you did 3 weeks ago about the now is all there is. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I've been resisting the now, and because the situation right now with my family is not as I want it to be, and maybe that's and then I have the desire to correct it somehow. So I hear that it's about accepting what is, and it's not the same as liking what is. Yeah. But my family, my husband, he seems to resist me so much, and he almost stopped talking to me, which is really painful. Yeah. And how can I turn it around? I don't really get it. Accepting that he doesn't do it, it's of course well, it's not really nice. Yeah. So yeah.
Accepting what is and accepting the now, as you said, isn't the same as liking it or even wanting it to stay how it is. So being clear on that. So I could look at this room I'm sitting in, and there might be things I want to change, want to move some furniture around, want to decorate and all of that. Just as a mundane example, so I accept how it is right now, and I can't really decide what I want to change about the room unless I accept starting from how it is right now. So starting from where you're at right now with this situation means accepting this is where I'm at here in this relationship. And it doesn't exclude the desire for it to be different. Accepting this moment as it is for you also means accepting this huge desire, doesn't it, for things to change. That's also present in this moment, isn't it?
Yes.
So most of us, as I did, exclude that. Okay, if I accept how it is right now, my mind said, it's never going to change. If I accept what is, I'm never going to get what I want. And I began to realize that only by accepting what is right now can I begin to move towards what I want. Because if I'm constantly in rejection of this moment, how can this moment ever change to how I want it to be? If I'm always like this with reality, and I'm wanting this thing to come, but I'm constantly in this pushing away motion, then it just cannot come into being, can it? So looking at how it is right now in the manifestation, in this situation, in your relationship with your husband, and looking at it without blame, it is how it is because of beliefs perhaps that you've both had about yourselves and each other. Both had ideas that you were separate beings, and maybe your husband still does, and that's okay, isn't it? But just saying this is how it is now because of what we have been thinking, and because of what we've been thinking, our actions have come from there. And without the blame in that, just releasing any, none of us can be blamed for things we've done or said, ways we've acted, while we feel we're a separate being, and perhaps also while we feel deeply inadequate. Can you get that sense underneath? There's something, we've all got this idea that something deeply flawed about us. And that plays out in our relationships, doesn't it then?
Yeah, because with all this awakening, things change. You see things quite different than when you think you're a separate being. And of course, when he doesn't have this, he still thinks as a separate being. So he think I'm different and weird. That's how I think he thinks, actually.
So if I am rejecting myself in this moment, any way at all, if I think I'm not how I'm supposed to be, do you think, if you're rejecting yourself in this moment, if you don't feel 100% adequate or okay as you are right now, do you think that your husband could accept you 100% as you are right now?
I hear what you say. I think it's, if I think that he thinks I'm weird, it's because I think I'm weird. Is that what you say? Yeah.
And when I looked at this inside myself, as much as I wanted awakening and burned for it and had to have it, there was this idea inside that I would be different or weird or strange afterwards, and unable to relate to other human beings who were still believing in separation. And I had to really come to sorry about that. I had to really come to love and accept myself first. And that then began to mirror in all of my relationships. So if I have the sense that there's something wrong with me, then I'm not accepting myself right now. So yes, if I look at my human body and mind and my relationships at any moment in time, there might be things I want to change and improve about those. I might want to lose a few pounds. I might want to be a bit more kind when I see this person. I might like to spend more time with that person, less time with this other person. All that's going on. But if I take a photograph of my life, if I could somehow do that, this is how it is right now. The camera wouldn't say, let's not include that bit, or let's have more of this bit in. It would just take a snapshot non-judgmentally of it all, wouldn't it? And if you can just kind of, this is where I'm at here with my life right now, my relationships and my awakening. And it's always going to be changing in the manifestation. I'm always going to be each day, each moment expressing this truth that I am ever clearer. There's no arbitrary point in time where I can say, now I've reached awakening in that way, is there? Still today for me, every day, there's more peace, more love, more joy, more forgiveness, more compassion. All of that is deepening every day and will continue until the body ends. When we take a moment in our life and we look at that and we go, I'm not enough because of how my life is right now. I'm not enough. So if you're looking at that at yourself and you're sort of seeing where you're doing that to yourself and actually learning to like yourself again, then people begin to like you even more then. They can't not do then. And those that are determined to not like you tend to drift away. But in a relationship, our karmic patterns, especially in an intimate relationship like a marriage or with our children, any karmic patterns are kind of right in your face, aren't they? So wherever we're insisting on not loving ourselves, it's kind of mirrored back to us very immediately by those around us. So this is coming up now for you because you're reaching a place where you want to love yourself. So life is showing you, here's a reflection of where you don't accept yourself completely. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. But
there's nothing going wrong. There's nothing going wrong.
How do I do it? How do I love myself? What is it I'm missing? Because I don't really think of myself as someone I don't love, actually.
Do you like yourself? What are, and these aren't questions you have to answer me out here because you know, deeply personal, but what things do you feel you need to change before you like yourself, before you respect yourself? These are all words for love that are more socially acceptable, aren't they? Before you approve of yourself, are you still looking to other beings to approve of you rather than giving that to yourself? And this goes for everyone listening and watching. It's not just for you, Christina, but it's something I had to look at myself. When I finally don't love myself conditionally, when I finally accept that how I am right now with all my flaws and perceived inadequacies and all of that is how the divine, the pure awareness, it wants to show up in this moment as me, as this human being, and that it doesn't make any mistakes, that it might not be seeing me the same way as I see myself. And I can begin to move into seeing myself as the pure awareness sees me. Then everything begins to change. Do you feel there's a gap? And this one is to answer. Do you feel there's a gap between how the real self or how an awakened being would see you and how you see you?
There must be, otherwise I wouldn't think there would be this situation.
So and that's very honest. And I got to that point myself. I decided I wasn't. It took consistent habit to form, but I decided I wasn't going to treat myself any way that Christ or Krishna or the Buddha wouldn't. I wasn't going to. Yes, my mind said things that were judgmental about myself, but I was going to, in that moment, choose not to agree with it and say something kinder to myself in a very ordinary, normal way. Each time I did something, driving too fast, my mind said, oh, you shouldn't do that, Well, I did, and I'd rather not do that again, but I'm not going to be unkind to myself. Even when a speeding ticket arrives, I'm not going to be, I'd like it to be different next time, but,
Yeah, but when you look at the situation as it is with my husband, which isn't very nice, or it's actually painful, then it hits me that I'm doing something wrong. I'm not good enough.
See, would Christ or Krishna say that about you?
No, they wouldn't.
So are you literally willing to step into that right now and say, I don't really want to say that about myself anymore? Maybe that's all that needs to change here. This idea, it comes up again and again, doesn't it? There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. There's something I need to change or fix here. And then when I change or fix this, then and only then will I measure up to the Buddha. But the Buddha would never, if he said something to you right now, he would say there's nothing wrong with you, and there never has been. And you can go on trying to fix yourself infinitely, or you can step into how the self would be right now. And mine says, you can't do that until all these things are fixed. Until my marriage is back to how I want it to be, that'll be the evidence I accept that I'm fixed. But it must be the other way around. It must be when I finally am willing to admit, brave enough to admit that there might not have ever been anything wrong with me. then I'll see what effect that has on all of my relationships. So where you're at right now with this painful situation it's been crafted into that by all of these years of both of you not loving yourselves completely. And what happens when you begin to change that? He might not be into satsang and all of that, but just you doing this will change everything for both of you completely.
Mm.
And every relationship in your life. Most importantly, your relationship with yourself. So just beginning to notice where you let these little self-criticisms, there's like 100 moments a day, isn't there, where we criticize ourselves and let it stand.
Yeah.
And just moment by moment, making a decision, I'd rather do something different. It's got to change here with me now, hasn't it? Or else how can a future moment be any better? The future is how the manifestation is going to come together in the future is going to be based on how I'm feeling right now. And if I love truth as much as I say I do, I must eventually begin to treat my own mind and body with the same loving reverence as I treat everyone else. Eventually, I had to suck that up and get on with it.
It sounds true, Helen.
So you have some crosswords between you, or he doesn't speak to you for a while, or something happens in the many things that can happen. What do you say about that to yourself? Okay, this is just a remnant of how we've both been thinking and feeling, and I'm making a choice now to be more loving of myself in each moment. And that's really just noticing the self-negating, the self-criticizing talk. Would the self, with a capital S, would the pure awareness, would Krishna agree with what I've just thought about myself? Every time I asked myself that question, it was no, 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 no. And I really got at some point, it was a choice I have in every moment. And it was like turning on a tap, and this love just started pouring through and out into all of my relationships.
Okay, thank you.
And one last thing.
Yeah.
Don't just demand, right, from this point forth, I'm going to love myself. Let's just accept that every day moving forward, you're going to get better at liking and loving yourself. And you have a little slip up here and there. It's okay, isn't it? You can love yourself about that. Don't set yourself an impossible thing. From this point forward, I'm never going to judge myself again, or something like that. Because it's going to happen, isn't it? But each day it could be less and less and less. And even when you do judge yourself, you can use that as an example of how to forgive yourself. Okay, I did that, it happened. So it's gone, it's done, it's over. Now, I'm spending a lot of time with this because this is everyone's question, isn't it? It might be you asking this about you and your husband, but it's really everyone's question.
Relationships is not always easy.
It's a wonder when you look at it afterwards. It's a wonder that any relationship works between any two human beings when we both think we're separate, we both think we're not good enough, we both feel deeply flawed. Isn't it a wonder that any relationship works from that level? It's the power of the love that's there even through the egoic sense of self, you know, and they do. What it really comes down to, awakening, is our relationships, isn't it? With you can't hide in your relationship how the patterns are playing. They come right in your face completely, whether it's with a child or a romantic partner or a sibling. It's in your face, isn't it? It's immediate and total, that reflection back to you of how you're not loving yourself, real time, full on. But this is coming to a head now for you because you're ready to love yourself, not because you're doing something wrong. it's time for your marriage to shift to a higher level. And that's what's happening. It feels like it's breaking down, something's going wrong. But really what's happening is the old way of loving yourself conditionally. I love myself when, I like myself if, it is no longer working for you and no longer acceptable for you. And that's happening because you've seen enough, you've opened enough, and it's an ongoing process, of course, seeing clearer what you really are, but that's beginning to seep through into what you want, isn't it? I want to love me fully. I want to love me like the self loves me, and I want to love my husband like that and everyone like that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Does that give you somewhere to roll with it?
Yeah, it would. It was. I was thinking of the mirror. So you're absolutely spot on. Yeah. I think. Thank you very much, Helen.
And thank you for being brave enough to share that, because I'm sure it helps everyone. Thank
you. I hope so. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Does anyone else like to ask or share anything? We have a few more minutes. Okay. Or maybe I'll read one more question if we don't have any on here. Okie dokie. Oh, sorry, Laura. Was that your hand up, Laura?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Helen. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I just, first of all, just thank you. Thank you so much. Beyond words. Something I'm working with in this last couple of years is looking deep within the subconscious to see where there's relishing of desires that I think I don't want, that, but that there's some sort of love for that on the subconscious level. And I encounter a fair amount of resistance sometimes to think, oh, I couldn't even possibly be relishing that. Mm-hmm. And some things feel like so encrusted that I can't even get to it, but the experience is still there. So I know it's still there, like the princess and the pea, there's that pea.
Yeah.
So could you speak to that? Thank you.
Are you are you speaking about habits and things that are less than healthy for you mentally, emotionally, physically, that keep showing up because of these desires that are kind of unseen? Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, I think that's it. And it, coming down to really deep self-worth issues. Last night I was working on the desire to experience the feeling of being put down. So just like really going like, really, is that in there, that there's there's a desire for something that on the conscious level, I would say, I really don't desire that.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you've raised, because as much as we want awakening consciously, there's also this undercurrent there was in me that didn't really want it, because if it was to occur and sort of blossom, it would really be an argument with this part of me that wants to stay small, that wants to kind of stay in that same habitual place as I've been. And I began to notice these desires, let's just say, you've mentioned one there. And when I looked at it, really, there was a desire to keep suffering. That's what it boiled down to. And that was astonishing when I really got in there, because this was after years of seeking the truth and even seeing the truth and beginning to live as that. This undercurrent of, yes, but I also need to keep suffering. So it helped me to dig these out, but really to what might help for you is just to look at, what do I get out of that when that thing happens? So someone belittles me and I feel a certain way. What do I get out of that? And of course, not consciously, We're not consciously wanting that, but there is this undercurrent of desire. When I looked at this kind of thing, it made me feel it was familiar. It was more familiar to me to have someone put me down than to say a nice thing about me. And of course, probably people have been saying nice things about me, but I didn't remember any of that. I only remembered the negative things where I was at the time. So if somebody treats me badly and I feel diminished because of that, as horrible as that felt, it also felt familiar and weirdly safe, because it was by that point very normal. But if you get a sense of it inside, there's a sense that you get something out of this on some level. Can you feel that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because sometimes it'll release and other times it feels very, it's like I can't get to it. There are layers maybe even in front of it that need to be worked through first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sometimes though that can just be a belief. I mean, for me, I had this strong idea that there's all this stuff going on in my subconscious that I couldn't have access to because I'd spent so long denying it, suppressing it, not wanting to see it. But really it was looking at why I didn't want to see it and why did I feel it wasn't available to me. So looking at whatever these patterns are, these habits, these unhealthy desires, let's just call them, if I look at what I seem to get out of it, if it's a familiar feeling, a feeling of safety, a feeling of knowing how everything is and feeling secure, I can then look closer at what I really want. So do I really want someone to treat me that way? Or do I actually want to feel secure and safe or stable, or whatever the word that comes out of that investigation? So unearthing what you really want, uncovering that. Why do I want this experience? And usually it comes back to, as I was saying before, because it'll make me feel this way. Okay, can I go for that feeling more directly then? Do I have to have this experience happen? And when I looked at it all, it really came down to, I want to feel safe. I really want to feel safe. And for how my ego was trying to go about that was getting everything to stay the same, to be like, this is how it is. And that's when it's like that, it's okay. Even if that meant people treating me a certain way that was less than loving, or very much less than loving. So what does it you really want when you have that experience? What does it give you? And maybe not the momentary feeling of feeling diminished, but is that feeling just so normal now? So acceptable, so safe, something about it inside. So really sitting, let's get a cup of tea and a pen and paper and, what does this seem to give me? And can I get that more directly? So I'm not arguing with my ego, the layers of this encrusted stuff. I'm just asking an intelligent question of what's a more effective way to get this feeling, to have this feeling. And that brought me back into allowing this stuff to come to the light, but not identifying with it, and therefore not having to have it happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Really, all ego wants is to feel safe, isn't it? And to feel loved.
Yes.
And that's all the things it's trying to do or achieve or become is for that feeling, those two feelings. So if we can recognize that without judgment, we can go a more direct way to getting that, having that feeling, by recognition of what we really are. So
thank you.
Is that helpful, hopefully?
Yeah, very, very helpful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lovely. Okay. So seems like a good place to leave it for today. Wonderful. Thank you for all your questions you sent in and the wonderful questions we've had here today. They've been, again, everybody's questions. And the power of satsang is like that, isn't it? That because there's only one of us, the same one talking as is listening, everyone's question is always relevant for everyone else if we can listen with an openness in that. So thank you very much. Namaste.